Okay, and we are live. Welcome to another episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Once again, I have with me Logan. Logan, how you doing?
Doing good, Jamie. How are you during these crazy times, man?
Good. The wind's kind of knocked out the internet for everyone, for a lot of places in the country. But things are getting better, and back to doing weekly content, and the podcast is back. But with everything crazy going on in the world right now, I think we're just gonna keep it to the whole gaming thing. There's enough crap going on right now that yeah, we're gonna keep it to gaming. So there's a lot happening over this past few weeks, and we're just gonna get straight into it. So Atlus. Atlus games have been around for decades. Things like the Persona series, the list goes on. And people for years have been wanting more Persona games or more Atlus games on Xbox because there was a time we did see some, things like Catherine and the Persona fighting games. Well, recently, Atlus had a big event, a streaming event, where they announced the new Soul Hackers 2, and they had listed Xbox One and Xbox Series consoles. That surprised a lot of people, because let's face it, we weren't expecting a new Atlus game to be on Xbox anytime soon. After the past decade, there hasn't been a new Atlus game on. Like you followed the whole situation, yeah?
Yeah, it surprised me when I saw Atlas game for Xbox. It was like a record scratch kind of moment. I was like, wait, what? And then, to be honest, Soul Hackers is not a franchise I'm familiar with. I had to dig into it to learn more about it. It's been dormant for quite some time, but I'm happy regardless that an Atlas game is coming to Xbox. I did find it amusing that it isn't on Switch, or at least I didn't notice it. So it comes to Xbox and PlayStation, but not Switch. So is it like either or? Like they have to choose one platform to leave off for games, or like how does Atlas even do things?
Yeah, Atlus is weird. I mean, the Nintendo Switch is basically the place to go for JRPGs. Like things launch on there every week when it comes to the genre. So I was kind of surprised to see the Switch like not on that list. Um, I've seen a lot of people angry that it's not on Switch, but it's on Xbox. But maybe it's just a power thing. The Nintendo Switch, it's getting old. Let's face it, the Nintendo Switch was kind of dated hardware when it came out. It was essentially 2014 mobile phone tech. But there are good looking games on the Switch, like Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild and stuff like that. Hell, they've even got The Witcher 3 on the Switch, so it proves that the Switch can handle some games. But I don't know. Maybe it's weird. Maybe they can't optimize it for the Switch correctly. Maybe it's going to be one of those situations where the game goes to Switch later. But to have it announced for Xbox just surprised a lot of people. And it got me and a lot of other people to believe that maybe this is the door opening up Persona to Xbox in the future, because I believe there is a Persona event coming this year where they may be announcing ports of stuff. And honestly, I wouldn't mind just a port of Persona 4 Golden, uh, even though it is a pretty old game. But honestly, I think it's a good sign, because again, people have been wanting more Atlas games on Xbox for a very long time. Like I think the last Atlas game on Xbox was maybe 2011, 2012 with Catherine. So it's been a while, and yeah, it's a good sign. And again, when it comes to Soul Hackers, I know absolutely nothing about that game. It came out like 20 years ago, so you've got to wonder how the hell they're going to market this game, because again, it's a sequel to a 20-year-old game that was on the original PlayStation. So, uh, you know, I hope they aren't basing what the sales are going to be like, whether we get Persona in the future. But I mean, if they advertise it correctly, I think it could do well. Like Matthew just said in chat, um, Kingdom Hearts, getting the cloud version of Kingdom Hearts 3 Cloud Edition going to be on Switch, so they might do the Cloud Edition there for Persona, but I should say Soul Hackers. But it's a good sign. People have been wanting more Japanese games on Xbox. Having more Japanese games on the platform in general is a good sign. Just more games at the end of the day. But I have noticed, and you've probably noticed this, Logan, that every time someone mentions Atlus and Xbox in the same sentence on Twitter, you have this army of people with anime profile pictures acting almost like they've been insulted. Like, people just want more Atlus games on Xbox, and these people act like they're getting games taken away. Like, you must have seen this as well.
Yeah, I'm quite familiar with them. Yeah, it's just weird. Like in gaming in general, there are these folks who almost make it their crusade to um, uphold something or keep it a certain way, and if the quo changes in any regard and someone else gains access to it, not them losing access, but someone else gaining access to something, just drives them crazy. And just the like, oh, Atlas is always PlayStation, always has, always will be, la 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 la. And if it came to Xbox, that's just an outrage. It's not even cultural fit. It's not this or it's not this, or they throw sales numbers out and all kinds of stuff. Most of the time, some of that information can be, give or take how accurate some of the stuff is that gets thrown out there. And then you have to take it to, like we talk about during your many Square sit downs, where it's hard to get a huge, accurate figure for the feel of how popular a series or game is on a platform if you only bloody throw out one or two every blue moon out of a series. It's like we'll give you number three and number five in a series. You're like, so I'm missing the beginning and almost the end, and so I just have to hop in. Like, what kind of logic is that? So I don't know. I'm happy for an Atlas game coming. I hope Persona comes too, even if it's the older ones as just kind of a peace offering. I would love to play Golden on Xbox or even Persona 4, the original, or anything for some of their old games. Catherine Full Body 100% should come over. I'd buy it day one. I loved Catherine on the 360. Such a fun, unique game. And I don't know, man. It bodes well, especially with that whole Xbox Wire thing, which is a topic of ours.
Yeah, Matthew just said in chat that Soul Hackers launched on the Sega Saturn in '97, then PlayStation, then 3DS a decade ago. So yeah, it's an old game. But I mean, the fact that it's getting a sequel and it's coming to Xbox is a good sign. And we've talked about this before. Like, these publishers cherry pick whatever goes to Xbox, and then people are expected to buy it. Kingdom Hearts 3 being the first Kingdom Hearts game on an Xbox was a weird move because, look, I like Kingdom Hearts, but the story is so convoluted and makes no sense. Like, it's a game starring Disney characters, yet the story is more complicated than Stephen Hawking's books. Like, it's just way too over the top. But it's like, look at Yakuza. That was done right. We got Zero, then the rest of the remasters, and then Like a Dragon came over. Like, that was the right way to launch a series on a platform where they never saw the previous entries before. Got people used to the franchise, and then when the new game came out, people were enjoying it. Like, people are enjoying the English voice acting and the new turn-based combat. So I think more Japanese publishers need to look at how they did that with Yakuza, because that was the right move, and it clearly works. Future Yakuza games are coming to Xbox because they did that the right way. But yeah, I mean, maybe it'll do well. And again, that's coming to Xbox and PlayStation and PC this summer, so pretty big game. And I'm pretty interested in it. I'll probably get it. It looks like it has some sci-fi elements, which means I'm just more interested. But like you were saying, Xbox Wire, the number one news hub for Microsoft's Xbox blogs, kind of. It's available worldwide, but they just announced that it's going to be available in Japan. Now, having access to a website where they announce stuff in Japanese isn't really a big deal, but if you think about it, it just shows that they have a growing market to the point where they want to pump out information that's in Japanese day and date with the rest of the information we get worldwide. So I'm not saying that Xbox is going to take number one place in Japan, but it's a good sign because more support in Japan, even if it's via cloud, that just means we're going to see more games. Because I'm on Twitter a lot on the night, and I've noticed I see pictures all the time of Japanese gamers posting their pictures of their new Xbox Series S or X and they seem excited by it. People playing games via Game Pass. That's how a lot of people are getting into gaming in the 21st century. Along with the movies and books and music. Like, it's a good subscription service. And if you look at Game Pass, there's a lot of Japanese games on there now. And things like Final Fantasy 13's in there, and Lightning Returns is going to be in there later in the month. But what's your thoughts on the whole thing?
Oh, I think it's only a positive thing. It shows that there's growing interest and demand in the region, that people over there want to be able to have something in their language that is a sure sign of, okay, this is where I can get information straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, from Xbox themselves. And with Xbox Game Pass in Japan going up and doing good numbers as well, and then XCloud, and now we're getting games like Soul Hackers 2, and potentially other Japanese games down the line. So all in all, it's a sign of positive momentum. And in the grand scheme of things, is a blog for Japan that big of a deal? No, but it's a small step in the right direction. And since the gap is there of what they need to accomplish to get to where they need to go, every small step matters. And so this is another good sign.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you look at a lot of the Game Pass announcements, they always have cloud listed a lot of the time now. And cloud gaming's getting more popular. Mobile phone gaming is pretty much the number one way to play games in Japan, and pretty much the main way to play games in the cloud at the minute is via xCloud and Xbox. So something's working. Even though Microsoft is growing a little bit, growing is growing. This will result in more games coming to the platform. And the thing is, there have been recent hiring over at Xbox in Japan for managing studios and like games coming to the platform. So the signs are looking good for Xbox games getting more Japanese centric in the future. So it's exciting. Again, more Japanese games, everyone wins. I wasn't really going to talk about this today, but I think I will, because I've seen a lot of people talk about it. So Microsoft Rewards is a very useful service not many people talk about. A lot of people use that to buy the Game Pass. You can, like, if you do all your Game Pass quests and like searches and stuff, you can pay for Game Pass Ultimate every single month without fail. And for about a year, maybe I think it was last year, I paid for a year of Game Pass Ultimate, and I was buying multiple games. So it's very lucrative. And all you have to do is spend maybe 2 minutes per day, and you literally you make more than you can spend. So like, if you buy Game Pass and you earn points, you can literally earn more than what you've spent, which is kind of crazy to think about. So the service has been changing over years. They've added new ways to earn points. They added Game Pass quests, meaning that you play games in a certain way on Game Pass and you get points. So it was lucrative to play games. Now, in the UK and Brazil, in January, they added a new way to earn points. On the Xbox app, and this is going out to other countries right now, on the Xbox app, if you went to your profile page, underneath there would actually be a list of new ways to get points. You basically sign in to Xbox on your PC, play a PC game online, and play a PC game. And there's also like have 7+ friends on Xbox Live. Very easy stuff. So if you did this, you get like a couple of hundred extra points per day. Like, I put it like this: I earn 600 Microsoft Reward points per day. Like, that's pretty good, And so basically, it's going out to other countries. People are wondering what's going on, because today, it being a Tuesday, it comes out that Microsoft Rewards have changed a little. Normally, we get about 5 weekly tasks, and people do that, get a few hundred points, but now it's 3. And instead of doing 2 daily check-ins, it's now 1. So you just have to open the app on your phone and then play a game in Xbox Game Pass on your console or PC. Well, now you just have to play the game on PC. So you use Microsoft Rewards, yeah, Logan?
Absolutely, it's a bonanza for me. Have gotten Game Pass Ultimate a lot. Have saved up and gotten gift cards with it, all kinds of stuff. It's the way to go, and it's a great value.
Yeah, so you can save a lot doing this, you know. You can even buy gift cards for other stores. So if you don't want to buy something gaming centric, you can literally spend that money in a shop. You know, so people are panicking online because they see the change in the Xbox, you know, Game Pass app. They see less quests, and they're wondering if Microsoft's going to axe the thing. They're just changing it. You know, even though there's less quests, you actually earn more by just doing the mobile phone and PC stuff. So I think this is because a lot of people forget to do the Game Pass quests and the logins, because the login thing doesn't work for everyone. I always see people every day talking online about how the mobile phone app didn't work, like, or how it didn't log them in or whatever. So I think this is just helping people around that issue, because it's not perfect. It's not a perfect system. It does have glitches. Even the Women's History Month tile on Xbox for Microsoft Rewards is glitched out for a lot of people at the minute. I'll have to try and contact someone from Rewards, but it's been having issues. But long story short, we're not actually getting points taken away. We're actually getting more. The system I just talked about is going out to other countries. And, you know, I see people online, they say, why would you spend your time each day doing this for, you know, these points? And the truth is, I've saved up in total about 430,000 points over the past 2 years I've been doing it. In that time, I've bought over 10 games. I've got £100 off an Xbox Series X. I've paid for over, I think, maybe 16 months of Game Pass Ultimate. And that's absolutely free. Like, I've gotten those points by not spending a penny. You know, yeah, you do get 20 points back per pound or dollar, depending on what region you live in. But, like, I don't buy a ton of games digitally. I go between physical and, you know, digital, so it's all over the place, and sales don't count apparently. But long story short, we aren't getting points taken away from us. We just have to earn them differently. So you're gonna have to log on to PC and get points that way. And if you don't game on PC, I highly recommend everyone download Among Us. You just play 2 games of that each day. You get the points. It's over and done with. And plus, it's why I'm actually addicted to Among Us at the minute. It's the only multiplayer game I'm actually playing, which is kind of sad. But I like it. And yeah, Microsoft Rewards. Like, I recommend more people do it. You can buy a lot of stuff out of that. Like, I know people that have bought, like, TVs off Microsoft Reward points just by, you know, changing it to, like, the gift cards. So, like, yeah, you can save up a lot per day. Like, again, I'm saving about 600 points per day just by doing the searches and stuff. It's good money. Like, getting this money is free at the end of the day, and I just want to get it out there. So, yeah, points aren't getting taken away. We just have to earn them differently. And to be honest, imagine if they just took these points away one day. Like, I think a lot of people would be mad, but I wouldn't be worried about that. Have you checked the rewards program in the US, Logan?
Yeah, I use the rewards program every day. It's quite easy to use, and this isn't the first time they've updated it. They every few months or so they have gathered data, and they compile it, and they look at it and say, okay, what features are people using? What features are people not using? People really engage in sales if we give bonus points for buying from the sale, or people are more likely to go ahead and pick up that new game if we give them a bunch of points for it, or you know, do the quests on Game Pass, and then do like your daily sets on Microsoft Rewards and Bing searches and all that. They add up a lot, and like before you know it, you can get a year of Game Pass or $100 gift card, or whatever your fancy. That it's a good program, and it it has some similarities to the Nintendo rewards, where they'd give you coins for buying games on your Switch, or even if you bought a physical copy, they'd give you some coins but less, so that they value your purchase. So this is kind of Xbox's version of that, and I think it's important.
Yeah, so I think people listening I wouldn't worry about, you know, them changing the reward system. They change it every so often, and plus you can get more points now, which is awesome. Now, before we move on to the next topic, just want to say, please like, share, and subscribe. Really helps the channel out. And plus, we've got a lot of topics to go over today. So I was going to save this topic for later on, but I want to talk about it now because Square Enix, they have a habit of making me mad at least twice a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, we maybe, 10 podcasts in, and I rant about Square Enix, and basically all of them. Square Enix does a lot to get underneath my skin. So, yeah, this week's no different. And this week in particular, I should say last week, they sent me into a rage. Like, thankfully, I wasn't on screen because I was actually pretty angry. So basically, Square Enix came out and said, look, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy didn't meet expectations, which is what they say for every bloody game that doesn't have Final Fantasy in the title. I saw this coming from a mile away. The fact that Marvel, and or should I say Square Enix, they didn't advertise the game correctly. That game was announced at E3, and it came out in October. No delays, no glitches, no massive day one patches needed. The game came out, it worked, and it was bloody amazing. And people didn't know what the hell that game was. All the time, every time I posted about the game, people would be like, I'm concerned, Jamie, because of Avengers. And like, I'm worried it's going to be like Avengers. And it's like, I can't blame these people for thinking that, because Square Enix did nothing. They could have came out and said, look, from the get-go, this is a single-player action-adventure not related to Avengers. Literally, not in the same universe, not the same genre, blah, blah, blah. They didn't do anything. And the thing is, Square Enix do this with every single game that's by their Western studios. Like, a lot of people have like noticed this, like, Deus Ex, Hitman, when they were publishing their games, Tomb Raider, every single game, it just underperforms. Like, their expectations are stupid high. Like, I remember Tomb Raider in 2013 came out, amazing game. They spent more on the marketing than the actual development because Square Enix apparently didn't know that Tomb Raider was, a household name. There was posters on the sides of buses. It was everywhere in the UK. The marketing was insane, and they have these expectations for these games. Yet Final Fantasy 15, and I've ranted about this before, but I don't care. I'm going to rant about it again. Final Fantasy 15 was in development for like 10 years, and then they announced a date for a reveal event for the release date. They spent millions of dollars on this live event, which was hosted by, I think it was Greg Miller. And, it was a pretty decent event. So they had this big event for the release date of Final Fantasy 15. And then, like, a week later, they delayed it again. They had a full-length, feature-length CGI movie, which I think is pretty good. It's called Final Fantasy 15 Kingsglaive. They had an animated series. They had a 5-minute CGI trailer with licensed music, pretty expensive trailer, and it was probably one of the biggest marketing campaigns I've ever seen for a game that had been in development for a decade, that had started from scratch multiple times. The game that we got wasn't the game we saw at the E3 prior, and not a peep, nothing was said about that game. I do not believe that game made its money back, like all of its marketing. No way it could. I like Final Fantasy 15. I finished Final Fantasy 15. I loved it. But, like, it's just every single Western game, they just expect it to do well, just willy-nilly, like, Guardians of the Galaxy, everyone knows who those characters are, but nobody knew what the hell that game was. I, as a dude on Twitter and a YouTube content creator, I shouldn't have had to go out there and tell people that this was a single-player action-adventure. And then what was embarrassing is that the marketing was all over the place. They waited till a week after launch. They finally put out a trailer that literally said, this was embarrassing. I felt sorry for whoever had to cut this trailer together. It started off with single player action adventure. It's like, you couldn't have put that in any of the marketing for the 6 months prior. They're a bunch of idiots over at Square. I don't know who runs their marketing divisions, but it's absolutely horrendous. It's like, what's your thought on this whole thing? My blood's boiling here.
I echo a lot of your sentiments on it. At some point, I honestly wonder, why does Square have a Western division? Like not even throwing on with Xbox shaded glasses or a Western viewpoint. I'm honestly curious why. Because the way they handle them compared to the way they handle their other ones is night and day. As you example, Um, Final Fantasy 15 was in development for like a decade, and it was an infamous example of just delays and readjustments, and it came out a great game eventually, but it just and then all these Final Fantasy games and everything else, they do well, but if it comes to one of their Western games, all of a sudden they have some unholy number they're supposed to hit. And if it doesn't hit that, then it's a disappointment. It didn't meet our expectations. I'm like, number one, who is setting these expectations? And, like, what are you basing this on? Like, how are you, because like you said, Laura Croft is a household name. If you've been gaming any period of time, you know who Laura Croft is, and you know Tomb Raider. The marketing on that compared to some of these other ones is was night and day. And then like Guardians of the Galaxy, they basically EA'd it where they put it in a no-win situation where they don't market it enough and they just kind of throw it out there and throw it out there during a highly competitive quarter in gaming with some real bangers. But the game was still so good that it won awards for how quality the story was and the gameplay and everything. It's a great title, and I'm thrilled it's in Game Pass, which is a huge deal. And now you have literally no excuse. If you have an Xbox, play Guardians of the Galaxy. It's brilliant. It just blows my mind. It like at this point, like I wonder if Xbox or Sony or somebody else just like offers them a check for those Western studios. Not saying it will happen, but you know, maybe they would do better somewhere else. I don't know. It's just a cluster.
Yeah, it's weird, man. Like honestly, their Western division they should just sell off. I'm not necessarily saying Xbox, although I think it would be a good fit. Basically, I'm just using this as a way to me get my new Deus Ex game. um, I think that's the only way that's going to happen. But like, it's all these games just underperform. Like, remember Sleeping Dogs? That originally started off as True Crime by Activision, and then they sold off the IP and the studio to Square and all this stuff. It was all over the place. Square Enix used to have like a list of movies in development based on their franchises. We were going to get a Just Cause film starring Jason Momoa. That never happened. They spent money on like getting that sorted. Never happened. We were meant to get a Sleeping Dogs film, which I heard it was going to star Donnie Yen, which would have been amazing. Like I'd watch that all day, but like that didn't happen either. And it's like I don't know. It's just like unless it's got Final Fantasy in the title, Square Enix just doesn't know what to do with it. And then even then, it's not perfect. Like Final Fantasy Origins, Paradise or whatever it's called. Like I've played that game. I played the demo when it was available. That game's not going to do well. Like wow. Like I know it's been developed by a different like publishing studio. It's not Bandai, is it? It's uh, Konami. So there's a different studio making that Final Fantasy spin off. But did you play the demo at all?
I did not play the demo. No.
Okay, so the game doesn't know what it wants to be. It's like it plays half like Dark Souls and half like Devil May Cry, and it just like the controls are weird. Like the demo has a tutorial that didn't explain the combat properly, and the story was bad. The voice acting was bad, and I can't blame the voice actors in these games. It's the writing that's terrible. Like writers that do bad writing, like no matter how good the actor is, it's gonna come off bad. But yeah, that game's not going to do well. And the thing is, I know for a fact when that game doesn't do well, Square Enix is going to come out and say, "Well, that game underperformed on Xbox. No more Final Fantasy games." And it's like, should we as consumers be forced to buy games that look bad, play bad, and seem bad, just so we can get more Japanese games in the future? Like, I hate that sentiment. That's just a I don't know, man. That just seems like a weird way to get more games. Like yes, we need more Japanese games on Xbox, but should we buy the ones that we don't want? Like, I don't know. This is just me ranting about Square once again. Like, I think Square Enix are incredibly incompetent. They can make fantastic games. Like Guardians of the Galaxy, Deus Ex, Tomb Raider, Just Cause 4, they can make really good games, but just they don't know how to market them. And here's the thing: Guardians of the Galaxy was announced today for Xbox Game Pass. That is huge. Maybe they got enough money back off that can maybe like greenlight a sequel. They have an existing fan base now, but like that game's incredible. Like, really think about it. In 2021, during everything going on in the world, a game was announced at E3. It came out in October, and it didn't need a day one patch. There was no bugs. People weren't posting compilations of bugs. Like, it came out and it works. And it was single player. There was no microtransactions attached to it. You get every single skin in the game just by walking around and exploring the environment. Like, it's a solid product. And it's a shame. And here's the thing, Square Enix will have made money back, from the whole Game Pass deal, and that's a huge game for Game Pass. I think the timing of it is perfect because Elden Ring, which we'll get into in a bit, and Dying Light and Elden Ring are going to be these games that sell massive for months and months now. So that isn't why we saw any big games in Game Pass in February, in my opinion. But yeah, another Square Enix game that got announced for Xbox is that Chrono Cross. Yeah, that's it, Chrono Cross. But again, that's an old game. So we're getting old games and Final Fantasy spin-offs that aren't that good. So yeah. What can I say? I'm just annoyed at Square. Like, I know it seems to be a thing in this podcast. I'll just whine about Square for a bit, but like, it's just bad, man. Like, you have such a Game of the Year contender game, and I'll be talking about Guardians of the Galaxy in a future video. Like, Guardians of the Galaxy should have won Game of the Year in a lot of outlets, in my opinion. Like, that is an amazing game, and in a time when everything's open world, this just hit the right spot. It is just good. It has dialogue options. It has single player combat with like combos and stuff, and it's space combat that I've got on screen right now. Like, the game is just damn good, and Square Enix just didn't know what to do with it, which is a shame. Anyway, we've got to move on because my blood is boiling just talking about Square Enix. Now, that game was announced for Game Pass. So UK boxed copies. Now, if you've been following me on Twitter or just been talking about Elden Ring on Twitter a lot, you'll have noticed this topic comes up. A big game releases worldwide, and then within a week, a few days, we get numbers about UK boxed sales. Now, I think people listening know where I'm going with this. So, Elden Ring comes out. Again, we'll talk about my thoughts on that in a bit. Elden Ring comes out, and it turns out that 70 to 80% of the boxed copies sold in the UK were PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5 copies. And people are making a big deal about it and using it as fanboy console fodder. And that doesn't make any sense. Xbox gamers have been more centric and more, how should I say it, pliable to digital releases over the years. Like, we were buying digital content on the original Xbox. Like, that's how engrossed we are into the Xbox ecosystem. Like, we used to buy in digital content. Whenever I see a poll about physical versus digital, I notice the majority of Xbox players basically go digital. Digital is it's convenient, at the end of the day. During the entire year of 2021, I realized I did not buy a single physical Xbox game. And what did I benefit from that? I didn't have to get up and get the disc. It's convenient. I can re-download games whenever I want. I can move them back and forth between the hard drive and the internal if I want faster loading screens of the, older games. And it's like, I completely see why people buy digital only, because it's convenient. And the price is all over the place in the UK, so it's like, sometimes if you buy a game digitally, it'll cost more. Sometimes it'll be cheaper. But with Elden Ring, you had a 6,000 point Microsoft reward card waiting if you pre-ordered the thing. So like, you were incentivized to get it digitally. It's like, you've seen this topic, yeah?
Yeah, anytime there's a big new title, whether from Sony, Xbox, or third party that comes out, you always have your little Twitter analyst run to the polls and check the numbers on box copies in the UK or the US, or how did it sell on Amazon, or what was this trader company saying about it and all that. And the numbers do say that most of the digital physical box copies were in the UK were for PlayStation. But as you said, Xbox has traditionally been more of a digital platform. But not to say that there wasn't physical sales on Xbox in the UK. Um, but that doesn't go into the whole picture of how many copies of the game are sold. Period. Because you look in the digital storefront, Elden Ring is in the top two for sure, top three, and I mean it's making bank. Everybody is in the hype about it, whether they are a hardcore Souls bro or a noob just trying to join in the hype and see what it's about. Like people are buying this game at record numbers, and I wouldn't be shocked if it's definitely From's biggest title going forward.
Yeah, I've been saying for a while that this game's going to be, screw it. I'm just going to link all these topics together. um, I've been saying for a while this is going to be pretty much From Software's like biggest game because of its broad appeal, like the open world and stuff. I'll get back into that a bit, but the whole boxed copies thing I want to talk about because it's used as fanboy console fodder, and the people that do this, and you know which people I'm talking about, they have no idea what the hell they're talking about. And it's always people outside the UK talking about this. Why not bring up the numbers from your own country? Like, and here's the thing, and I made a point of this because I'm right. If you go to top paid games on Xbox, they'll tell you what's number one or where they are in the storefront. In the UK, Elden Ring is at number one. In a time when FIFA is 75% off. Now, a few of the people that replied to that tweet said that, well, it's months later after FIFA. FIFA's the number one selling game every year in the UK. Like, FIFA in the UK is basically what COD does in the US. Like, it makes bank, right? It's guaranteed money, guaranteed success. So, even though it's 75% off, Elden Ring, a Japanese game, is number one. And that all people want to talk about is boxed copies. Like, talk about digital then. Like, we live in an age where most of the purchases are digital, and even Ubisoft in the year, they've been putting out numbers over the past year that most of their sales now come from digital. And if most of the sales come from digital, and the boxed copies are like the only thing people are talking about, it's literally, it means nothing. It's console fanboy fodder. These people that do it, they have no personality and they have no idea what they're talking about. But like other people were posting the lists of like where these games stack up in other countries. And like I was actually pretty surprised to see. And some of these are actually pretty cool. So, where is it? Okay, so in Portugal, it's number 3. So that's Elden Ring at number 3. In Canada, it's number 1. I think this is in the US. It's number 1. And it just looks like it's doing well digitally. Like, I think it's okay for people to buy, games digitally. And you still have these people online that just want to use physical media as like a fanboy topic, and that just doesn't make any sense. Like, why is it okay to enjoy music, movies, TV, books, everything else digitally, but the second it comes to games, we have to bring up boxed copies? The next, I don't know, Avengers film, when that comes out, when Spider-Man No Way Home comes out, right? Are we going to be talking about boxed Blu-ray copies? No, they're going to be talking about streaming numbers. And like digital numbers, like nobody should give a crap about boxed copies. And here's the thing: I bought it physically just because I wanted the cool poster inside. But like, I think people just need to step back from the whole boxed copies thing. This isn't the early '90s. This isn't the early 2000s. This isn't the 2010s. Like, digital is the number one way to buy games at the minute. It just is. That's a fact. And people just need to like get rid of that whole topic of talking about that all the time. It's kind of ridiculous at the end of the day. It's that this game comes out, it's doing well. That's all people talk about, and people want to bring up boxed copies. It's stupid. Anyway, let's move on. Just wondering, have you played Elden Ring yet?
Yes, I have, and I'm quite enjoying it.
Okay, are you familiar with From Software's games in the past?
Yes, I am. I have the Dark Souls trilogy, Sekiro, and Bloodborne. So yeah, I'm familiar with FromSoft.
Okay, so so far I've put about maybe 6 hours into the game, and I must say I'm loving it. Like, I can say that I did play the tech test last year for over 10 hours. There was a purpose built class in the test called the Bloody Wolf, which unfortunately isn't in the final game, which really annoyed me when I found that out. But hey, I'm enjoying the game, and my God, this is probably the best game From Software has ever made. It's the biggest From Software game ever made. Even though I don't like to talk about Twitch numbers that much, like the fact that there was over 700,000 people watching a From Software game on Twitch is pretty incredible. You have streamers like Dr. Disrespect playing it that was making headlines when he was rage quitting. And it's like, if that's your first Souls like, and it was, by the way, Dr. Disrespect's first Souls like is Elden Ring, and people are surprised that he rage quit. Like, it's going to happen. I remember when I first played Dark Souls, I almost broke a controller. Like it happens. But the game's incredible. Like, it really is. The hitboxes in that game, the environment. I recommend people play it on performance mode. We will talk about performance in a bit, which I need to talk about. But like, the game's good, and it seems to be doing really well on all platforms. And what can I say? It's a magnificent game. And I can say that after 6 hours. It has its issues, but then again, most games do. But yeah, I think this is probably going to be the best From Software game. And it's open world game design. I think that's why a lot of people are just jumping into these games for the first time, because, obviously there's a lot of people that buy games because, there's a popular thing to talk about. It's called FOMO, fear of missing out. It's the number one game to talk about at the minute. So there's a lot of people buying it because of that. And a lot of people experiencing a From Software game for the first time, they either really liking it or they really dislike it. But it's another hard From Software game, and it's good. It's really good. Its performance is all over the place, but when it comes to the open world game design, it just works. There's these little outposts spread throughout the world that if you defeat all the enemies, you actually get a few flasks filled again, meaning you can just continue going forward with your adventure rather than going back to a fire. It's good, man. How many hours have you put into this so far?
I haven't actually put too much into it because I've been juggling a few different games, but um, I've really enjoyed it so far. I'm a samurai. It's my first run, so I really like the combat and the hitboxes, and the lore of it is super fascinating. Man, that narrator got me so hyped during the beginning, and it was just you can see Martin's influence on the kind of the lore and that aesthetics and the vibe of the world, and then just the the whole that there is more of a story, yet it's still hidden in the environment and stuff, but it's more structured. And the mounts is a big deal, and the grace points is more lenient, and I really appreciate the fast travel and the being able to go from point to grace in a way that isn't as punishing as some of the older From games, where if you died, you have to make this like hour trek back to get somewhere. And the open world to where you don't have to do something in a certain order or like get a certain item for this or this. You do it as you please. It really just feels like kind of like almost a zeitgeist moment of gaming where everybody's in on this and it's ballooned up to this point, and it's like a perfect storm, perfect time, perfect game moment. And it does have issues, yeah, but I love it so far, and it's definitely got gonna I have my work cut out for me with it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because like I see people in chat talking about like FOMO got them, and here's the thing: it is the popular game to talk about at the minute. It's going to be big. It's going to be a big game. But it's a good game. Like it's a lot of fun, and the thing is, it's open world game design. Like the problem with From Software games in the past is that they basically big interconnected mazes. You'd be walking maybe an hour, 2 hours, wondering when you're going to get to the next bonfire, and then you'd finally find a door after a boss, and you'd be relieved to see a ladder that led to your previous bonfire, because the games were like just these huge mazes. But it's not like that with Elden Ring. Like the game's open from the onset. You can fast travel from the start of the game, which hasn't been a thing in since I think it was like that in Dark Souls 3, but like there's so many quality of life improvements compared to previous games. The fact that there's no weapon degradation, like that's the one thing I can't stand in video games. Like is when I have a weapon that I'm using and I have to repair it or it breaks. Like I can't stand that. And this is a From Software game, and no, none of that happens. And it's great. It doesn't happen at all. And just stuff like that, having the horse so you can do mounted combat. So if you see a group of enemies, you're not entirely sure you can attack and make your way through it. You just hop on the horse and attack them on horseback, and it just works. You can call summons from the beginning of the game, and I've got gameplay on right now of the summons, and it's so easy. And I'm playing as the vagabond. I'm basically a soldier class, and you can call in summons from the beginning of the game. Like it's just so good, and like I know the topics came up about should the game have an easy mode. I'll put this out there right now. I'm not one of those FromSoft fans that are against like an easy mode or something like that. Like I think people should be allowed to like play it. And here's the thing: this occurred to me. I had this brainwave moment before. Is that instead of putting in an easy mode in Elden Ring or From Software games, why not put in a set of armor and a sword or something in the game that's just way overpowered? Because that way you would appease the people wanting an easy mode without actually changing the code. Like, that just seems like such an easy thing to do, but I don't know. I'm not a game designer, I'm not going to pretend to be, but just put in OP armor that people can get. But the game's good. It's really good. And, the FOMO thing, a lot of people in my feed on Twitter are playing these games for the first time. They have no idea what they're doing. I put it like this. From Software games never tell you where to go, what to do. You're just expected to just go wherever and deal with it. This game does have more story than previous From Software games. The game's kind of more explained to you in a way in this. But I will say this. If you want to get into Souls-likes or a From Software game, this is basically the best starting point. Especially with all of its quality of life features. The fact it's not the hardest Souls game I've ever played. It's still pretty challenging, but it's really good. And I don't know, man. Screw it. We're going to talk about performance. So Tim Dog the other day on Twitter put out a tweet saying something like, should we be talking about performance in all of these games reviews? And it's a very good point. Tim Dog really did have a good point with that. Because have you noticed that Elden Ring kind of got a pass in all these reviews? Like, it's coming out like 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 12 out of 10. The game is amazing. But the fact that almost none of these reviews took points away for its performance. And the truth is, Dying Light, which came out a few weeks prior, didn't get the same treatment. It was getting low review scores because of its performance. Before the day one patch, Digital Foundry wouldn't test Elden Ring until the day one patch, but didn't Dying Light get tested before the day one patch? Like, it just seems like Elden Ring, this massively hyped game, and hyped for a good reason, just got all these little extra passes other games didn't. Like, look at Horizon Zero Dawn, right? Or I should say Forbidden West. That's had bugs, but so's Dying Light, but so's Elden Ring. But Elden Ring seems to be the only one, really, that seems to be getting a pass. Like, I know Horizon is kind of getting a pass because, I'm not saying there is Sony favoritism, but when they release a third-person game, nobody really talks about the bugs and people defend it. But Elden Ring, this amazing game, nobody's talking about performance in reviews. 10 out of 10. It chugged to 2 frames per second at one part. 10 out of 10. You must have noticed this as well, yeah?
Oh yes, it's very noticeable. Like it or not, if it sounds tinfoil hat, then so be it. But there are certain studios and publishers that definitely get the benefit of the doubt when it comes to tech issues and quality of life and performance for some games, where they get a grace period for some of their games when they put them out there. Right or wrong, it is a thing. Like you said, Dying Light 2 got taken to task pretty good about some of the issues it had. And, there are some other titles that have similar issues in some regards, and they're kind of glossed over. If is that bias? Is it just it seems they had higher expectations for one, so they kind of overlook it, or is it that this is a game I'm unfamiliar with, so I'm really scrutinizing it, or what? Like even Nintendo, I love them, but they have a formula that they go back to over and over and over and over and over again on a bunch of their games. It's treated like, okay, we're just gonna stamp a 10 on it and it's good to go. It's like, wait a minute, I've played this game like 200 times. It's just a different coat of paint, and so I don't know. I think either performance should matter or it shouldn't matter in games for reviews. Like, if you're gonna tear a game a new one for scoring because of performance, then you should do it for another game from a different studio. If you're gonna say, okay, myself personally, when I've looked at games and analyzed them, I'm a little more forgiving when it comes to tech issues if I'm enjoying the story or the gameplay itself and stuff. But maybe there are some folks who are more interested in the tech issues or the tech, like Digital Foundry, for example. They're always about the frames and the performance and yada yada yada. So maybe they have a more focus on that versus someone who's more just about the story and the gameplay or whatever. But it, it seems like it should be more consistent.
Yeah, yeah, you nail on the head right there. And here's the thing, like when it comes to games, like I don't really talk about like bad performance or glitches or much of that a lot because I've never really experienced like really bad like glitches or anything. My time with Cyberpunk, I didn't really experience any glitches. Mass Effect Andromeda, people are well aware of what my thoughts are on that game. But again, I had maybe two bugs during my entire playthrough. Other games like people say that The Witcher was buggy at launch. It was, but like I had that like one sound bug. But like Elden Ring, like the performance isn't exactly the best. It's not solid 60 on performance mode, nowhere near. It's bloody good though, you know. But it's like Dying Light should have had the same treatment. And the thing is, Dying Light have gone above and beyond, I should say, Techland with that game because they said what's going to be in the day one patch. They said what was going to be included in the patch afterwards, and they've been keeping every platform up to date with what's dropping when, and they've given us full patch notes and then dates on when they come into effect. And it's like they've been delivering patches pretty much better than anyone in the industry, in my opinion. But From Software, we've been having network issues. Like last night, I just saw tons of pictures online of people just getting the network error issue. It's like, well, was that not happening in the reviews? Did everyone just have magical internet connection all the time to the From Software servers? Like, it just seems weird. And look, From Software, they are one of the darlings of the game industry. They are up there with Rockstar and Naughty Dog. Like, they do get a lot of passes. I think it's kind of obvious at this point. It happens a lot. Am I saying the game is bad? Hell no. Yeah, this game's obviously going to be a lot of people's best game of the year. And it's only the beginning of March. So, yeah, I think people just need to be more vocal. Again, I think that these things should be mentioned in the reviews for all games after the day one patch. But, I mean, I don't know. Reviews are a weird thing because you can talk about them afterwards and get less clicks after the day one patch, but if you do them before the day one patch, you're going to get more. So it's weird. There's a lot of variables when it comes to it, but what can I say? It's a great game. It's going to have long legs. Like this is going to have like Skyrim legs. Like people are going to be playing this for years, and it's open world is great. Like it's very unique open world, and you can see it has a lot of huge influence by George R. R. Martin. Like it does have some slight Game of Thrones vibes. I'm pretty sure that the little girl, Melina or whatever her name is, that to her sounds like the girl from Game of Thrones, Maisie Williams. Like I'm 90% sure that's her. Just the voice sounds too familiar. But yeah, Elden Ring, bloody good game. I think people should mention the performance in the reviews. And here's the thing: we still don't know when we're getting patches for Elden Ring on any platform. Apparently, PC gamers have horrendously bad performance, even on super powerful rigs. And it's like, did they actually like allocate much time to optimization? Apparently not, because like I've played Elden Ring in quality mode, it looks great. But when you play it in performance mode, still looks great. Just the performance isn't that good. It's weird. It's a weird time, and we are meant to be getting ray tracing at some point, which I don't know how the hell that's going to affect the game. Like ray tracing in a game by From Software, and they making it, like, is the performance really going to hold up? It's strange, man. It's strange. But that game, again, it's going to have long legs. And, people that are looking at this game right now and going to buy it due to FOMO, just know this. If you can't be dealing with difficult Souls-likes and you're not a fan of the Souls-like genre, I can't recommend it. Like, don't play it. Don't waste your money. Like, as much as I think this game's going to do well, and as much as I think this game deserves to do well, I'm not going to tell people to buy a game that they won't like. Like, at the end of the day, if you don't like the genre, don't play it. It might get you a few extra likes on Twitter, playing the latest thing, but at the end of the day, is it worth your time and money? Probably not. But yeah, have you got anything else to say on Elden Ring?
Yeah, I was gonna echo your last points that this, if you're new to From Software games or difficult games in general, then I would say patience is going to be required. It's even though this is the most accessible game from FromSoft, it's still tough as nails, and it will hand your butt back to you a bunch. This game is not easy, not for the faint of heart, um, but it's fair. And if you learn the combat and learn the enemy encounters and their movements, and you memorize and you get better. I've never been one of those get good guys like clowning folks who can't do these or like on an accessibility or easy mode. I'm all for everybody being able to play everything, but this is for those that are dealing with the FOMO. I would definitely put a warning on this one. Um, that this is your first rodeo. It might be pretty frustrating, but if you like challenging games anyway, or you or someone who prides yourself in trying to overcome big obstacles in games, then will be right up your alley. And it's a brilliant game. Has a few issues, but I until Starfield comes out, I think this is game of the year. And Starfield, I think, is the one game that hasn't come out yet that has a chance against this one.
Yeah, this year is going to be really competitive. You have things like Hogwarts Legacy meant to be released this year, Starfield, God of War maybe coming out this year. So it's looking stacked, and game of the year is pretty much taken by Elden Ring by a lot of people at the minute. Honestly, my game of the year at the minute is Dying Light 2. Dying Light, amazing game. Like, nobody expected a first-person zombie survival action game where you use parkour to be good, and it was amazing. And then we have the sequel years later, and honestly, they did what they needed to do. It occurred to me while playing the other day, this wasn't a topic, but I'm just going to ramble about it. Dying Light reminds me of a Bethesda RPG. It's basically a Bethesda RPG light, but it has parkour. like they've added so many like RPG style elements to the game now, where it's essentially just an RPG, just in a zombie setting. And yeah, I can't say enough good things about Dying Light 2. Like, that game, they executed what they set it out to do, make this open world game, which is massively vertical now, and the parkour is amazing. What a good time it is to be a gamer. I know people will whine about stuff online, but Elden Ring, amazing. I'm loving Edge of Eternity, which is a JRPG style game now in Xbox Game Pass. Dying Light 2 is fantastic. Lego Star Wars is out next month. I know it's a Lego game, but it looks bloody good, and it's Star Wars, so I'm there. But yeah, I mean, this game's going to be amazing. If anything, if all the games that are set to release this year actually release this year, it's going to be up there with 2007 and 2010. Like, what a year for gaming. And, I think all these games will still come out. Starfield, it's going to be a massive summer for the release of that, or to say the release of gameplay. But yeah, it's going to be a good time. Anyway, let's move on. So this is a small topic, and I kind of want to keep it brief. GoldenEye. Some achievements leaked a while ago about the GoldenEye remake. This is the proper remake. This is the one-to-one remake of the original on the Nintendo 64, not the Daniel Craig one from Activision, not that one. So the achievements leaked about a month ago. It's kind of out in the wild now, but some screenshots have slowly been leaking, basically from the Xbox Live Store and some achievement-related websites. And it looks like we're getting GoldenEye this month. The list of, shall I say, Game Pass games we got today, it wasn't a huge list. Normally it has maybe 8 or 9 games. Today I think it was 6, maybe 5. But it wasn't a huge list. And all signs are pointing towards GoldenEye coming out this month. And there's also been a few pictures floating about of one of the developers wearing an Apple Watch where it was the faceplate was actually the health bars from GoldenEye, and it said March on his wrist. So it's kind of looking like this infamous game that came out or was pretty much fully developed in 2007. We might get it this March. Like you've been keeping up with this, yeah?
Oh yes, I'm a big GoldenEye guy. I loved it on the N64. Spent so much time in multiplayer. You know, it all the that led to Perfect Dark, and now we have that franchise, and it's such an iconic FPS. Like, it really pioneered console multiplayer for, especially locally split screen or FPS, and it was such a good adaptation of a film. And back in that era, there was more of those than there are today, but it I'm super stoked for it, especially it being the one that was almost done in essence until some licensing or legal hiccups happened at 11th hour and they canned it. But I'm super stoked for that, and that being on Game Pass, and I would almost assume Switch as well. Maybe if they added crossplay or carryover, like you remember how Ori, you could get achievements on both and have Xbox access and stuff. Maybe if they do that for this game, that'd be really cool. But I think it's a big get for Xbox for that piece of history to finally come home.
Yeah, that game has a long list of funny anecdotes. Someone from Nintendo, when this whole like remake was happening, said like uh, before his dead body or something like that, like we'll never see that game on another platform that isn't a Nintendo device. And it's like it looks like it's going to happen. And that game on 360 was meant to be 1080p, 60 frames per second. So it's probably going to be 4K 60, all the bells and whistles. But yeah, and the thing is, I've seen Jeff Grubb talk on Twitter about how he thinks this is going to be on Switch as well, and I think it will be on Switch. I think it might be the original version because they do have the Nintendo Online service, which is Nintendo 64 games, and maybe that's how they're going to get it. I think it's going to be a weird situation with this release. Maybe it'll be a case of the original version will be in the Nintendo service, but the remaster will be on the store to buy. There's tons of theories going about at the minute, but the fact that this remaster, this was done literally 15 years ago, been sitting on a server ever since, and it looks like they finally got it sorted, and it kind of has me excited because if this is happening, what if we see other Bond games come to Xbox in the future? There was a few on the original Xbox and GameCube called Nightfire. That was an incredible Bond game. Bond games were actually really good. GoldenEye was so good, it was the second best selling Nintendo 64 game of all time. And it was a licensed title from the 90s. That shouldn't have been a thing, but it was. And GoldenEye was amazing. So yeah, keep your eyes out, people. Looks like it's going to be out this month. There's been a lot of hints about it. Now, I know you talked about this, Logan, and a lot of people have mentioned this. Microsoft, they put out a lot more first-party games than they used to. Obviously, they have more studios, and this year it looks like they're going to be putting out Starfield and stuff, which I have a video coming about Starfield this week. But collector's editions. Sony come out with these massive, really good-looking collector's editions with their games, and Nintendo does collector's editions as well. And, collector's editions, they satisfy a bunch of different people. The company behind them makes more money, and these collectors get something they want. Because if you're an Xbox collector, you can't. There isn't really a lot of Xbox collectibles out there in the form of collector's editions. Gears 6 came out, or I should say Gears 5, and I think it was like a drone, like a smaller, more controlled drone that was the collector's edition. Gears of War 3 had a simple statue. I have it, and it's a pretty small statue. I think the last collector's edition Microsoft did that was actually pretty big was Gears of War 4, where it was JD on the motorcycle. But outside of that, like, we don't see collector's editions over at Xbox. Psychonauts 2, no collector's edition. Halo Infinite didn't really get a collector's edition. There were some stores putting out their own versions with T-shirts and statues and stuff, but like Halo Infinite, the biggest Xbox release in years, didn't get a collector's edition. Like, I know you've been wanting to talk about this.
Yeah, I'm a big collector guy for physical merchandise, and I know we talked about how Xbox is primarily digital now, and maybe that plays a part in this, but I just feel like they should offer the option that if there are people who want a physical copy and a collector's edition, that they should have one available for those folks. And like, Halo Infinite with an officially licensed like legendary edition, like Halo 3 did, with where you got the Master Chief helmet, or like Halo Reach had huge statue with the squad and everything, or Gears 3 with Marcus Phoenix statue, and then Gears 4, and like they have so many iconic franchises going forward. And now that Bethesda is under them, and hopefully Activision Blizzard, pending things, hopefully they open the vaults and let maybe re-release some stuff, or going forward make sure they also include a collector's edition. I know it's more niche than um, maybe some other platforms, but there is definitely an interest. That's why Xbox fans were spamming the mentions of Limited Run and all these other physical makers for digital games, because they're like, they want the cool collector stuff. Like Quake is a first party game. Not everybody else got a collector's edition, but Xbox. Uh, Broken Age, same example. Like those are just a couple. Doom collection, awesome steelbook, everything. Not on Xbox. It's head scratching. Their credit, Limited Run says their first Xbox focused one will be coming, I believe, this summer, May, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I just think for first party in general, it also generates hype, because I mean people are posting pics of it, like, oh, here's my awesome statue, here's this art book, this vinyl, or this CD, and just all this cool collector stuff, and they embrace it, and it generates even more hype. I that's one thing I admire about Sony, is that they go all in on their big first party titles for collector's editions. Like, I bought the Horizon Forbidden West collectors. I get the giant mech elephant and steelbook and everything, and then I got Days Gone collector's edition statue, steelbook, soundtrack, everything. They go all in, and it's one area I wish Xbox would embrace more.
Yeah, it seems like a weird move that they wouldn't do, because like these collector's editions, they make money. THQ Nordic, they put out a collector's edition for literally everything, and it sells. Like Game in the UK, video game outlets, like they sold out of I should say, the first run of Kingdoms of Amalur Remaster, a collector's editions, like almost straight away. And that's just a simple resin statue, and that's what most of these like collector's editions are, just a simple resin statue which they can pump out in these factories, and it's like people will buy that. I still can't believe Halo Infinite didn't get a collector's edition. Like that's just bizarre. Yeah, you can go on multiple websites and buy resin statues that have been sold like by themselves, but it's like, I don't know, it just seems weird. Like, all these releases should have collector's editions. I would have loved a Psychonauts 2 collector's edition. Like, they could have done all sorts with that type of thing. Flight Simulator, same thing. It's a weird move for a big company like Microsoft to make, because again, it would literally generate more income. and it's strange. And so credit to Sony, they do put out collector's editions for pretty much all their major titles, and they tend to do multiple versions of each one. So like I think it was God of War, there was like two different collector's editions, and people just like buying this stuff. And the thing is, it works as marketing again because again you have these influencers, they get them, they unbox them, they have them on the shelf behind them. People watch those videos, they want to know what games they're about, and then they look into that as a topic, and it's like it just seems like marketing and easy revenue for them that they're just not doing. I don't know why. Maybe Microsoft's wanting to push everything to physical, I should say digital right now. I don't know. It's a weird thing, but who knows? Maybe we will see more because again, Microsoft has more first-party games in development than ever before right now. So maybe they'll actually listen to feedback. And like you were saying with the limited run games, like Microsoft has allocated X amount of units for print in the past, but that's why we haven't seen limited run games in the past. But we're going to start seeing games this summer. So if an indie game that looks really promising catches your eye, it may be getting a physical edition, but it'll be extremely limited and probably sell out straight away. While you mentioned the limited run games thing, a lot of people have been mentioning Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, like the I'm doing air quotes remaster, not the remake, like basically the port that's on Switch and PlayStation right now. And a lot of people have been wondering why do we not get these games? So I've heard that apparently on Xbox, Microsoft does not allow ports of existing games on the store. So we already have Knights of the Old Republic on the store, the original Xbox game, which runs at 4K. Apparently, Aspire's video games, Star Wars games that they have in the stores right now, those are direct ports of the original games, which Microsoft doesn't allow in the store. So that's why we don't have things like Star Wars Jedi Knight, I think it's 2 Outcast or something, and then, Knights of the Old Republic. So we do not get the widescreen version with achievements because we already have Knights of the Old Republic, the original. And there's been a lot of people confused about why we don't have this. I think it makes sense, but I think people really want the option to buy these versions because, again, I would love to play Knights of the Old Republic with achievements and in widescreen. But what's your thought on the whole thing?
Yeah, I've heard similar that it's a interface thing about basically, well, it is the same game just with achievements and maybe widescreen, and we have the OG version via backwards compatibility that's been upscaled and everything. So why do a port of it? Personally, I think they should allow it for choice, for consumer choice. Or if you already have the game, then heck yeah, just pop in your disc, you're ready to go. But if you can't find an OG disc or buy the OG copy digitally, you could just get the port. I mean, it seems like it would be a good idea to me, especially like, you know, PlayStation, for example, Manhunt was one of the last batch of BC titles, like, and Max Payne. On PlayStation, Manhunt has achievements and or has trophy, and so does Max Payne. But on the Xbox, it doesn't because it's their OG version. That's just an example, but of how they view things differently. But I wish they'd allow ports like that and physical copies like that to be reproduced and made the collector's editions. Like, if there was a Knights of the Old Republic collector's edition for Xbox, I'd be on that like just day one immediately. So I don't know. It's a bummer, but it's one of those I get, but I'm disappointed kind of things.
Yeah, I can't really blame them, but at the same time, I do want a new version with achievements. Like I can't. One of the reasons I don't talk and post a lot about original Xbox games a lot is because I cannot stand that old aspect ratio. What was it, 4:6 or something? 16:9 is the current one, but like I couldn't stand the black bars on the sides of the screen. Like that really really annoys me with video games, and I just like it's one of the reasons why I find it hard to play some original Xbox games. Thankfully, the original Xbox does have a lot of widescreen games, but I don't know. I think Microsoft should, change their mind in that whole situation. And plus, they'd be making more money off that as well, because I can't imagine a lot of people are buying the original version of Knights of the Old Republic And plus, you have to put some fault on Aspire as well. Because if it was called a remaster and they put some effort in, because again, they are direct ports. They are the same resolution, I believe, as the originals. So you're still getting a blurry game from back then with no extra, like, added bits. It's strange. But anyway, we'll move on. Now, this is a topic I didn't have listed because I only just looked at my notes for a second time. So, in one of my previous videos, and Jeff Grubb has mentioned this in the past. Thank you, Steve Conrad. 4.3 aspect ratio. Right, I always forget that. Anyway, I can't stand 4.3. Anyway, so Jeff Grubb has mentioned this in the past. I mentioned this in a few previous videos. It looks like Microsoft may be looking into making remasters of games. So on Xbox, we already have backwards compatibility, and we have access to things like the original Gears games, the Halo games. Pretty much everything by Xbox is backwards compatible. The Fable trilogy. And it looks like Microsoft might be looking into doing remasters. Now, I think that's a fantastic idea. Because, one, it generates money for the company, which they benefit from. And two, we benefit by getting new games. But three, the best part is that we already have access to the original games. So, like, on PlayStation, you've had to buy these remasters because there was no way to play Gears, or should I say God of War 3 on PlayStation 4. You had to buy the remaster because there was no backwards compatibility. So, that was your only option. But if they come out with a Fable collection, remastered, 4K 60, some bells and whistles, and they put that out for, like, let's say Christmas while we wait for the next Fable game, like, I think that would make a lot of money and a lot of people happy. So, like, when it comes to remasters, what would you want to see from Xbox?
I'm all aboard the remaster and remake train. BC was a huge passion of mine, and Jason, if you're listening, we would. There's still some more titles folks would like, if possible, if the AB deal happens. There are definitely some more titles that would become maybe possible that we would like to see happen if all doable. But yeah, remasters. The Fable trilogy makes a lot of sense. The Fallout collection makes a ton of sense, especially if you include Fallout 1, Fallout 2, and then Fallout Tactics, which haven't been on console. You could port those and include those in one package where you get those three, then Fallout 3, and then Fallout New Vegas, and then Fallout 4. That's a killer package. And then, some people have been wanting a Marcus Phoenix collection. Maybe do that and include Judgment with those. And then, if assuming the AB deal goes through, I'd love to see Hexen and Heretic, and then there's the old King's Quest games. There's Singularity. There's so many games and IPs in their backlog. Banjo Kazooie, those games could use a remaster or remake. The Crash games, some of the older ones, besides the original trilogy, and Spyro, a new game. There's so many games, and there's that rumor that's floated around that maybe Bethesda was making a remake remaster studio. I think Skullsy was the first one I saw post about that. I can't remember entirely, but I love that idea. I tweeted about it the other day. If Xbox could have a designated studio in the vein of a Night Dive or a Blue Point that just go all in on remakes and remasters, and it would generate interest. It'd be some money for some dead periods of time where there's not major titles out. People can try them out and go, hey, I love this franchise, we need more of this, and then it could generate interest for new ones, or at the very least allow these games to be preserved going forward, which is a huge focus of Xbox and their ecosystem. So to me, it seems like it'd be a no-brainer to build a studio like that, or if a Night Diver, somebody like that were interested in joining, that would be awesome home run. I don't know, what do you think, man?
I would love it. we have access to backwards compatibility, so like you literally have the option like to play what you want. But like all the franchises, like you're saying, Marcus Phoenix collection. A lot of people have been wanting this for years, and the thing is, they've already done one of the three games. You know, Gears of War Ultimate Edition. They essentially remade every asset in that game, put it out as a standalone game with multiplayer, and they've literally done one third of the work. They just have to do that for Gears 2 and Gears 3 and maybe Judgment down the line. And the thing is, these other franchises could benefit as well because, let's face it, nobody's really playing Gears of War 2 online at the minute. Those servers probably aren't going to stay up forever. So if they had all those maps and multiplayer, modes in one package, like Master Chief Collection, like that would generate a lot of hype. I would love to play through a remastered version Ultimate style of Gears 2. I love Gears 2, it's my favourite. But like I'd pay for that. And here's the thing, these games will be in Game Pass day one, and they could supplement their bigger releases with these remasters, because remember, Microsoft said they want 1 or 2 games every quarter. So if you have all their new releases, which includes Blizzard, and then Activision, I should say Bethesda, and then Activision Blizzard, you'd be able to supplement remasters or remakes in between those releases. So Microsoft would probably be able to put out like 6-8 games a year, which would also include remasters. But like having the idea of a remaster studio for Xbox makes a lot of sense because they have so many games like people would buy again. Like I would love Fallout 3, but with the treatment, let's say Mass Effect Legendary Edition got. Like work with the modders, get the best looking version possible out to the public. Like it would be huge. Like just imagine every other week you had things like Fallout New Vegas just randomly popping in the store, remastered from the ground up. Fable, I think the Fable trilogy would be pretty much one of the biggest ones. Maybe get the studio that did the Crash trilogy to do Banjo-Kazooie, because again, Banjo-Kazooie, that could be a really relevant franchise again. Like literally the sky's the limit with that IP, if they get the right studio, and I think Activision Blizzard is pretty much one of the best studios for that. But I don't know. We have seen rumors in the past about Bethesda maybe working on a Fallout 3 remaster, so this would kind of go along with that. I don't know. Like, is there any other games you think that would suit this whole remastering thing?
I think a Quake collection would make a lot of sense. Night Dive and Machine Games and id all collaborated on a Quake remake or reimagining, quote unquote, and it's brilliant and runs great. They did a collection that had Quake, Quake 2, Quake 3, Quake 4, or if maybe they are the rumors of the Quake reboot are accurate, then maybe they don't want to put those other ones out and they want to just kind of continue stylistically from the first one. But I think Quake makes a lot of sense for a remaster collection. Like I said, Hex and Heretic. Singularity would be a great one to give a remaster to, or a BC at the very least. Banjo Kazooie, all those. You could have a whole studio created just to handle Rare's basement IP. Like they have so many just games just hidden in storage that you could have a whole studio dedicated just to remastering those suckers and trying pumping them out and seeing if people are interested anymore. And Activision, Blizzard, obviously, you could. You mentioned it the other day, like porting the older COD games to Switch would make bank, or they could remaster some of the old ones, like 2, 3, the big red one, Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2, World at War, stuff like that. Or they could, um, StarCraft is a franchise people are just dying for more information on. And I love StarCraft. I want that franchise to be relevant and come back in a big way. That would be a no brainer to me to remaster and put a modern console ports and everything on.
Yeah. I think a lot of the reason why people want this whole Activision Blizzard thing to go down is because I think people just look at those studios and the IP and think, what could they do with them? Like, I want my third person, StarCraft game. Like, can you imagine what that would be like? Because the cutscenes in those games are just phenomenal, like rich sci-fi world. Um, we could probably dedicate a whole podcast to possible games that they could work on, but like you mentioned,
Yeah.
Singularity, like that game isn't backwards compatible. I have no idea why. Maybe they couldn't get it to work. Maybe it has some licensed music. It's been a while since I played it, but it's like Singularity, like BioShock fans would eat that up. Give it some marketing, put out a remaster, would lead to a sequel. Have Raven Software make a sequel. I think that's the cool thing about Xbox at the minute is that they have so many different things in the works that you can just speculate all day. There's rumors of the remaster studio. There's rumors that they're going to be making more remasters and remakes. But they also might be working on older IP such as Guitar Hero if they get the Activision Blizzard thing. Like, it's strange. And Phil Spencer did say he did want Call of Duty on Switch. Like, I have no idea how Activision doesn't have COD on Switch. That just seems like such a easy money idea. Put Black Ops on there, the first one, easy billion. I swear to God, easy billion. But I don't know. It's an interesting time, man. Microsoft. If you look at Microsoft, let's say 7 years ago, 8 years ago, like when they had like 5 studios, like we all knew every game coming. There was Gears, Forza, Fable. It was a meme. And now we can only imagine what they possibly have in the works and what could be coming. It's kind of cool if you think about it because again, Microsoft, they had like 5 studios. Now they have 25 plus, and they're gonna have like 40 or something if the Activision Blizzard thing goes through. And it looks like it will go through. I know there's things going on in the news right now saying that, people on the board are wanting more money, but that's how these negotiations happen. The same thing happened with the Disney deal with Fox, so it is the norm. But yeah, good stuff's coming, and we should be seeing more news in the next few weeks when it comes to Xbox stuff. Anyway, have you got anything else on the topic before we finish this show?
No, just it's exciting time to be an Xbox fan, and I, I'm tantalized by the idea of all those IP that they could get from the Activision Blizzard thing. Fingers crossed it goes through, and just that they can resurrect and bring back. And like, we didn't even mention the rumor about the new Vegas 2 potentially. As that they're talking with Obsidian about potentially actually making that game that everybody's wanted for like a decade. So it's a great time to be an Xbox fan. Xbox has games. They have too many to name at this point. And that's not even including all the random, code names that get thrown out there every week from Jez or Jeff, and it's great times.
Yeah, it's got. I mean, like you're saying, the whole New Vegas thing. Like I'll be going over that in like a video in the next 2 days or so. But it's like Microsoft has so much stuff in the works that like there's all these rumors coming about what's possibly coming. Because again, when Microsoft picked up Bethesda, we entered a world where Obsidian could work on Fallout again. Like, that's what a lot of people wanted. Personally, Fallout 3 is my favorite, but I understand that Obsidian fans absolutely love New Vegas 2. And plus, I'd play that. I'm not going to say no to a New Vegas 2. But yeah, there's good stuff coming. And plus, again, Soul Hackers coming to Xbox this summer. Another big Japanese game. Anyway, it's been a good show. Everyone in chat has been awesome, aside from the porn bot, which we get every week. But you know what happens. But yeah, thanks for coming on, Logan. It's been a good show. Again, we've been gone for about 3 weeks due to the weather. We will be back next week if everything's fine. But yeah, again, everyone, please share, like, subscribe. It really helps the channel out. I've got really big things planned for the channel, things that you wouldn't believe. And when it comes to the content on this channel, I have a video coming out this week about Starfield and Fallout, so keep your eyes peeled to that. And also, when it comes to this channel, the breaks I've had recently due to the weather, that's not going to happen anymore. Back to weekly content, weekly podcasts, it's all good. Again, like, share, and subscribe, all that stuff. Hit that bell for notifications, it really helps the channel out. And yeah, I hope everyone has a good day. We are out. Peace.